Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Not only to everyone here with us in person, but to everyone out there watching on the interwebs. Let's get warmed up. Sing a little bit. Hava Nashira, let us sing. Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira, let us sing. Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira, Hava Nashira, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Hava Nashira. Let us sing.
Shabbat Shalom. And almost Shana Tova. Nice to see you all. Nice to pray with you this morning. I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt. This is Steve Brodsky. We are happy to be here and having this Shabbat morning with you. Sometimes I think it's rude that Shabbat happens when the high holidays are happening. Like whoever designed this is not nice. But then it's also really nice just to have a minute to not be sitting in front of the computer, to not be thinking about details, and just to pray and be with everybody and take a minute to appreciate Shabbat, even though it's still rude. So with that, let's set our intention for this morning. Let's put ourselves in the Shabbat mindset and spirit. Take that deep breath. And whether you are here with us in person or whether you are at home, let's turn our spaces into holy spaces and read our opening prayer together. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship together. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
Eştacha ve'el heichal
Adonai ahavti me'on beitecha u'mekom mishkan kevodecha mishkan kevodecha va'ani eshtachaveh Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chazdecha Elohim berov chazdecha Aneni be'emet ishecha
Our moments of gratitude. Well, we started them with gratitude for our tents, which I certainly think we feel at this moment, that we have tents outside where we can
lots of tents
gather next week, so many tents. And now we move to gratitude for our physical selves. This is an amazing life, a gift of moments, precious and dear, profound in joy and profound in sorrow together.
Amazing life. A gift of moments, glorious and holy, rich in laughter, rich with tears.
This is an amazing life, a gift beyond imagination, fantastic stories of solitude and adventure, tales of darkness and light, psalms of frailty and endurance, poetry written in time and motion, in stillness and silence, in shouts and whispers, in mourning and wondrous celebration.
This is an amazing life. A river of blessings, a gift to cherish in awe and wonder.
Baruch atah Adonai rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are the gifts of life. Blessed is the giver of life. Blessed is this amazing life.
We are aware of our physical selves, and we are also aware of our spiritual selves. The fact that each of us is endowed with a soul, and as we awoke this morning, our soul is restored and renewed and refreshed, and we say, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehora hi. God, the soul that you have given me is a pure one. This is a new-ish melody that we've used a few times, and we include in here our nisim b'chol yom, our blessings for everyday miracles. If you don't know it, you'll catch on. It's very simple. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama tehora hi again. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Ata birata, ata yitzarta, ata nefachta bi, ve'ata misham up the fallen. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters, who strengthens our steps, who clothes the naked, who gives strength to the weary. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God, who has made me free, who has made me a Jew, who girds Israel with strength, who crowns Israel with splendor. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama tehorahi. We take a moment. If anyone would like to share their own personal blessing for something miraculous, wondrous, hopeful, thankful that they've experienced this past week.
I have one this week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gave me my sweet little Neil, who turned 5 this week. We had a big festive celebration.
Amen. If you're out there watching online, feel free to type your blessing into the comments. Say it out loud, say it in your heart. We all recognize, especially as we now really move deeply into the high holidays, that we have many, many blessings in our lives. We have many challenges as well, of course. But part of Jewish life is to stop and recognize that there are miracles and blessings all around us every moment. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama tehorahi. Ata birata, ata yitzarta, ata nefachta bi. Ve'ata nishamra vekirbi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi. Elohai neshama
so much gratitude, we move to gratitude for our minds, the ability to understand and learn and think critically about things. And so we say the blessing together over the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah.
So let's engage with some words.
Do it.
We continue to work our way through this wonderful book, Every Day, Holy Day, 365 days of teachings and practices from the Jewish tradition of Musar. And our value for these few weeks, we're in the 5th of 7 weeks of quotation about truth. So we are talking about truth. And this quote comes from perhaps our greatest teacher, Maimonides, also known as Rambam, also known as Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, who, when you look at those dates, 1135 to 1204, that's a long time ago that he lived, right? But he was such a brilliant, fascinating character. I did a little study on him a couple of weeks ago for my Elul talk. And he was really quite an amazing, way ahead of his time kind of character. Brilliant astronomer and mathematician and physician. He was the personal physician to, now I'm going to not be able to pull it up out of my memory, Saladin, basically the emperor of the Ottoman Empire at the time, really powerful man who ruled a big chunk of the Middle East during that time, and he was a personal physician. But he was really our greatest Torah scholar, and the work that he undertook to codify the mitzvot and spell them out for us was just unbelievably massive, and how much time and energy it must have taken for him to do this, really over the course of about 10 years. Anyway, he teaches us that love, truth, and righteousness, it looks like, love, truth, and righteousness, there we go, and hew steadfastly to them, for the success you shall thereby attain will be built upon a foundation of solid bedrock. Truth and righteousness, a foundation of solid bedrock. You know, we talked last week and in previous weeks about this idea of truth and how we live in a world where truth is hard to determine, and different people have versions of the truth. And is there such a thing as ultimate truth? And how do we know when we're hearing the truth and we're speaking the truth? And it also connects to the Torah portion this week that we've looked at about the verse that you spent most of the time looking at in Torah study today is really my favorite section of Torah from this week's portion, Nitzavim. It says, the Torah is not far away. It's not far up in the heavens, high up in the heavens, that somebody has to go up and get it and bring it down and give it to you. And it's not across the ocean that someone has to get in a boat and travel across the ocean and get it and bring it back and give it to you. No, the Torah is very close to you. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart. And we talked a lot in Torah study about how, it's in our words, our deeds, what we say, what we do, and it's in what we believe, in our hearts, which our hearts, our minds, there's a connection. Don't have time to go into all the details of it, but and we believe that the Torah is the Word of God, that the Torah is the truth, the ultimate truth, right? But the Torah is multi-layered and very deep, and it's hard to discern what that truth is just by looking at it, a cursory reading, right? A Peshat, just read the. It's so deep, and there's so many layers to peel back and expose and think through and engage with. And as we said, our blessing before, we engage with words of Torah. That's what we do with Jews. We wrestle with. We are a people who wrestle with God. Yisrael, right? That's our name. That's what we do. We wrestle with this word, these words that God has given us. And sometimes it's really tempting to say, oh, it's too hard. It's too distant. It's too, we deal with this a lot with B'nai Mitzvah kids. How do we take these 4,000-year-old ideas and words and make them relevant in today's world for a 12-year-old, 13-year-old young person? But for all of us at any stage of our lives, that's a challenge. And we struggle with that. We wrestle with that, right? We search for the truth. And the truth, rhetorical question, does the truth change over time? Does the truth depend on our circumstances? Or is truth something that is in fact ultimate? I don't know the answer to that. Thoughts, ideas, what do you think? Bob, please.
I really like this one because it's short and simple and straightforward and quite true. Sometimes it seems that shading the truth or actually lying will get us further success. But it's only in the short run because that foundation will eventually crumble.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, for me personally, to watch the news and see that there's so much of what's going on in the world that is built on a shaky foundation, yet it's not crumbling. It's holding up in some ways. And that's frustrating. And confusing, right? Because then I think you start to question your what you believe. Like, well, maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know. So anyone else? Other thoughts? Please.
The Oxford English Dictionary included the new word post-truth in 2016. I really struggled with it, how that can become a legitimate definition rather than an observation of how truth is being manipulated.
Yeah.
And I guess in the end, I kind of concluded that we just all have a responsibility to not just accept truth, but to seek it, as you were saying earlier, the sort of layers of what.
Right.
And live that.
Yeah. That is an interesting phenomenon that we have just sort of accepted. Okay, some of the world has one truth, and some of the world has a different truth, and you think that we would want to strive to find the true truth, but that's such a subjective thing, right? Everyone comes at it with their own experience, their own point of view, their own belief system, and what for some people is absolutely true, for me, might not be. So, part of the human condition. Yeah, Steve. Getting my workout this morning.
Sure. I think if you view it from a scientific standpoint, then truth is objective. But if you're not looking at the physical world or physics, then it becomes more subjective.
Yeah, when it gets to values, personal values, religious values, those things, it gets much more subjective. Yeah. Lynn.
I was told by someone that truth is relative. I'm not sure what that really means, but in a discussion with someone, I was told that truth is relative.
Huh. And how did that land on you?
Not well.
Not well. Yeah, no, I think that's
well.
especially when we hear people in position of authority or power say things like that. It's like, well, truth is, there are alternate facts, right? How can there be alternate facts? I mean, facts are facts. Yeah, it's hard to get back over there too. You have to sit closer up here next time.
I like it when you said about people have different stories and backgrounds. So instead of me read about something and tell people what to do, I could say, oh, I read about that thing, and you should maybe read, or maybe you should understand my background. I should tell why I see that point because of my background. and explain people instead of trying to convince people.
Yeah.
And then they can have their own opinions, and then they can share different sources to different people, and each one can think on their own way about interpreting the word.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we've gotten to a point where sources that used to be sources that we used to consider authoritative and accurate and final are being questioned. Right? Science is being questioned. You know, not that long ago, the CDC was the ultimate authority on vaccines and health, and like nobody questioned the CDC, and now, like, you know, who knows? So, well, great discussion. Thank you all. Something to think about, especially as we move into the days of awe and this period where we really engage in this wrestling process with our cheshbon hanefesh, our accounting of the soul, and think about truth and what role that plays for us and how we strive for the truth. So our phrase and practice for this continuing section for the next couple of weeks. Oh, forgot to change the number there, didn't I? This is week 5, teaching 5. Let's read this together. Truth stands forever. Falsehood has no legs. In our practice, a good one as we enter this week, check your words before you speak to ensure that they are true. And we wrap up our study with this blessing together. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. We'll continue with Psalm 150. Shama, Hallelujah, B'tzilzalei Trua, Kol Hanshama Tehallel, Kol Hanshama Tehallel, Hallelujah, Hallelujah.
rise as we are able for the Baruch Hu.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai! In wisdom you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai, your God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hameorot. Let's read together. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke and we wrote, we reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Praised be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Baruch, Baruch, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam, Leolam Vaed, Leolam Vaed. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated.
We'll continue together with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
The Israelites walked into the Reed Sea 1 foot at a time. What were they thinking about as the water rose up their legs, chilling their hearts, advancing toward their open mouths together? We continue to walk here, now, 1 foot at a time, on our better days forward. Alone, I cannot reach the far shore without drowning. Somehow, I don't go under. The person to my right holds me up. Something I cannot see holds him up. Blessed is the source of help, so often unexpected. I step forward. The sea is vast. Blessed are you, gracious one, for your miracles that greet us every day.
Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai. Who is like you? Who is like Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef eleh, Shira chadasha, shibechu geulim, Lishimcha al sfat hayam, Yachad kulam hodu, Vehimlechu ve'ameru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai, who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai, Yai,
Tzur Yisrael, Rock of Israel, rise in support of Israel and redeem Judah and Israel as you promised. Our Redeemer, Adonai Tzvaot, is your name. Blessed are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Prayer is at the heart not only of great religion, but of significant living. Without prayer, we cannot scale the heights of compassion or reach the peaks of love of our neighbor, of which we are called and capable together. Prayer is a step on which we rise from the self we are to the self we wish to be. Prayer affirms the hope no reality can crush, the goal that can never acknowledge defeat. Prayer is not an escape from duty. It is no substitute for the deed.
Prayer seeks the power to do wisely, to act generously, to live helpfully.
It helps to reinforce the act rather than to replace it. Prayer is the search for silence in the midst of life. Our prayers are answered not when we are given what we ask, but when we are challenged to be what we can be. We rise as we are able for the tefillah.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu, Ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, Gomer chasadim tovim, v'koneh hakol, v'zocher chastei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu b'sefer hachayim, lemancha Elohim chayim. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu b'sefer hachayim, lemancha Elohim chayim. Lemancha, lemancha, 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 lemancha Elohim chayim. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Amen.
Our God and God of the generations before us, you are as near to us as the blessing of breath. Together,
You are the living memory we carry of mothers and fathers, and the mothers and fathers before them.
You are the lasting memory of sages and students of prophets and priests.
Adonai, we know you through our matriarchs and patriarchs, the bearers of wisdom in every generation.
We know you as the voice of kindness within us. We know you as the constant hope that lives in our hearts.
You are the awe we cannot name. You are the name we give to all that is worthy of reverence, devotion, and gratitude.
You are the sacred presence that protects from within. You are the sovereign of our souls who remembers us for life.
Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives life to every generation. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך vador,
Lidor vador,
lidor vador,
lidor vador,
lidor vador, nagi god lecha, lidor vador, lidor vador, lidor vador, nagi god lecha, ulenitzach nitzachim, kedushatcha nagdish, kedushatcha nagdish, v'shichacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, leolam leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We take a moment now for silent prayer. You may stand or sit, whatever feels comfortable.
Create a pure heart within me, and let my soul wake up in your light. Open me to your presence, flood me with your Holy Spirit, and I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness. And I will teach your love to the lonely, and the lost will find their way home. And I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness. And I will teach your love to the lonely, and the lost will find their way home. Yehu liratzon imrefi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai, Tsuri, Begoali.
And with that, we rise as we are able, and we enter into our Torah service.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai meYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
You may be seated.
I will go find you a Torah to read from.
Okay, we can also hold this one and love it and read from a book today.
It's really up to you.
I think we can. Do you guys mind? Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where a Torah is and where it's rolled to. We've been playing musical Torahs, so.
Let me just explain, because we're almost at the end of the Torah, right? We're in Nitzavim, which is 3 portions from the end of the Torah. So most of our scrolls that we're reading from on a regular basis are all the way at the end. But on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is 3 days from now, we're going to read the Akedah, which is in the book of Genesis. So we have to have the Torah rolled all the way back to the book of Genesis. And we also have B'nai Mitzvah students who are coming up in just a few weeks who are reading from Bereshit, from Genesis as well. So we've got Torah scrolls all over the building in different positions, enrolled to different places. And we did not expect when we opened the Ark this morning that the one we needed would be missing. But we go with the flow here. So.
Totally. All right, so this is great. And you guys are, I feel, adventurers with us, right? You're in for the adventure. And so before we get to the Torah reading itself, let's spend a minute and talk about the Torah portion. And if you were with me in Torah study, I mentioned that we were going to touch for a moment on the role of one very important part of this parsha, and it's and I actually want to share with you a little bit about why it's important to me, and the role that it has played in my life. And so, for those of you that were not with us in Torah study, here is the recap of Nitzavim. It's very short. It's actually one of the shorter of the parshiot in the Torah, and it covers not even 2 full chapters of Torah text. And like Steve said, we're third from the end. And all of Deuteronomy has been preparation to enter the land of Israel, and we're getting closer and closer, but we're not there yet. And some of Nitzavim seems repetitive. We say a lot of the same, almost identical lines of Torah that we said in Parashat Re'eh. We say, see, I put before you the life and death, the blessing and the curse, the good and the bad. And those are very similar to some of the verses that happen in Parashat Re'eh. But there are also a couple of really, really important lines. One of them that we talked about earlier is at the beginning of this parsha. It says, "You stand here today, atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem," and then it says Roshei. So you stand here today, all of you, in front of God. Roshechem, your leaders, Shiftechem, your ministers, Ziknechem, your elders, Vishotrechem, and those are the ministers, the Shiftechem are the tribes, Kol Ish Yisrael, every person in Israel. And then it goes on to say, I have to find it. Then it goes on to say that all of the people that are gathered here today, Ki et asher yeshno po, all of you that are here today, Emanuel, with us, that stand here in front of God, and et asher einenu po imanu hayom, those who are not here today. What we discovered in Torah study, I've always translated this, those who are not yet here. But Lynn pointed out that the word yet is not actually here. I inserted that because I like it. But maybe it applies to every generation, those that are behind us. This covenant is with those who came before us, this covenant is with us, and this covenant is with those who are yet to come. And so it covers every generation, and I loved that. It's going to stick with me. And then we get to the end of the text, and it says a couple more things. One, the line that Steve was talking about, that it's not far away. This covenant, this Torah, this text, these laws, this way of life, our God, not far, not across the sea or in heavens, but right here in our hearts and in our mouths. And then there's one more line. And the line is that we read at the very end of Nitzavim, it says, Ha'idoti bachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. I put before you today, I call before you today the heavens and the earth to witness. Ha'idoti means to witness. Ha'chaim ve'hamavet, life and death. Natati lefanecha, I put them before you. Habracha ve'haklala, and the blessing and the curse. Uvacharta b'chaim, and you should choose life. L'ma'an tichya tav zarecha, so that you and all that are going to come after you shall live. And it is an incredibly powerful verse to exist in our text. And on one hand, it feels complicated theologically, right? We put before you life and death, blessing and curse, good and bad. Choose wisely or it's going to stink, right? The bad, the curse, the death, it's all going to happen. That's the complicated part of it. And there is this part of it that totally changed my view on Judaism. And what I wanted to take a minute to share with you is actually a little bit of a piece of my story, which is that I grew up in this community. I'm from Denver. You guys have heard that a million times. And I did not go to synagogue here. I like to make that joke. I went to preschool here. I learned to ride my bike in the Grape Street parking lot. I learned to drive in the Grape Street parking lot. But it's significant that I didn't go to school here because I was not brought up in a Reform community. I was brought up conservative and sometimes a little bit plus, depending on where I was in my Jewish journey. When I was in high school, I think I was a little bit plus to the conservative. When other times I've been a little bit all over the place. Because we all discover how this all means something to us. And I did a lot of exploring religiously when I was younger because I couldn't really figure out exactly what flavor of Jew I wanted to be and what level of practice I wanted to be, because there were things that really compelled me to be more observant, but parts also that didn't. And when I finally decided that I wanted to be a rabbi and I was trying to figure out how to do that, I had had almost zero experience, meaningful experience in the Reform community. I'm sure that I had grown up and been friends with a million people that belonged to Reform temples and synagogues, but I hadn't ever really dug into it. And it was through almost a fluke that I came to Reform Judaism because I thought I was going to go to a conservative seminary. And there were a couple pieces of their, not even their admissions process, but just when I went through the beginning of the process, I learned things that at that time, it's funny because now I couldn't possibly care less about the things that I learned about the conservative seminaries. Like I would be required to wear a talit and a kippah. That was one of them, which I do now anyway. But at that moment, I had never done it because I grew up with these being things that had gender and it felt really uncomfortable to me and I didn't want to be required. And so the idea that the conservative movement very appropriately deals with the obligation or obligatory commandments when they come to egalitarianism and gender by obligating everybody makes perfect sense. And at that stage did not feel right for me. And so I literally Googled Reform Judaism because a couple of people had said to me, HUC is an amazing school. And so I read the Wikipedia article about Reform Judaism, and then I went way deeper and I started to read actual texts, and I read platforms and declarations and books by different Reform authors and theologians and leaders. And two parts of my life all of a sudden came together perfectly. Because this verse that we have in this parsha, I put before you the blessings and the curses and the concept of life and the concept of death, and I put before you a whole lot of truth. So, go make good choices. Is so powerful to the way that I think as a human. The idea that we have autonomy, that we are responsible for our own lives, for our own circumstances, for our own emotions, for the way that we talk to people and treat people, for the way that we interact in the world, for the way that we deal with what's hard and what makes us feel sad and what makes us feel bad. I loved this, and this is actually one of the first verses long before rabbinical school that became really, really important to me. And if I needle pointed, I would, put it on a pillow and put it on my bed, right? Like it's one of the ones I want to see every day. And then I realized that it's also the foundation of my religious beliefs, and that it speaks so perfectly to why I'm a Reformed Jew. Because I have a choice. And because all of a sudden, for the first time in Reform Judaism, I had the capacity to make choices about what kind of Jew I was and not feel apologetic for what I knew about, what I had tried, what I had lived with, and wasn't moved by. And it was so enormously powerful to combine those things, that this verse was not just about how I interact with the world, but also how I interact with God. Because Reform Judaism has a platform of choice, not ignorant choice, not lazy choice, not the easy choice, but a choice that is made through intense study and practice, and then trust and autonomy in us to be able to make those decisions wisely and with a whole lot of information in our back pockets. And so there are pieces of traditional Judaism that are really important to me that don't really fit in the Reform movement. And there are pieces of traditional Judaism that don't resonate with me, that may or may not be a part of the Reform movement, but are not a part of my practice and life. And I, for the first time, when I started rabbinical school and invested in Reform Judaism, felt trusted by my own tradition, because God tells us to choose, to make choices. It's like the poster for free will. And I think that those theological questions that we ask, this is my answer. I think it's interesting that it says, ha-tov v'hara, the good and the bad, ha-chaim v'hamavet, the idea of life, the life and the death. It's not life and death, it's the life and the death, the blessing, the curse, as if it's in the general, right? As if God is saying to us, it's not so much, even though we've got chapters and chapters and chapters of it, if you do this, this will happen. It's that actions have consequences. I'm giving you this choice and I'm reminding you that there is life to be had in this, and there is death, right, to be had in this. There are blessings to be had in your choices, and there are curses to be had in your choices, good and bad. Not that this will lead to this. I will salt your fields if you are rude to people. But that if I'm rude to people, my fields are going to get salted, my fields, right? If you don't interact kindly in the world, people don't trust you. People don't appreciate you. People don't listen to you. You don't earn the right to be trusted from that. And so this verse frames so much of how I operate, how I navigate the world, religiously and otherwise. And so I wanted to share with you just a little bit about it because it's so powerful. And every year when we get to it and we read it before and on Yom Kippur, because we read it again on Yom Kippur. This is what Reformed Jews read on Yom Kippur, which I love. Because as we're doing teshuvah, as we're returning, as we're repenting, as we're acknowledging all of the things that we have done wrong, we are reminding ourselves, nobody caused this but me. I have control over it. It doesn't mean that we have control over bad things. The world is hard and bad things happen. Absolutely, all the time to everyone in different ways. But we still have control over them, whether we're victims or whether we are owners of our truth and our situation, how we react, how we show up in the world, how we show up in our pain. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do on Yom Kippur. It's a really powerful thing to think about all the time. So I thought I would share that with you so that you can have it too, whether it's something that feels important to you or relevant to you or not. When we get here on Yom Kippur and then again next year, we can continue to talk about these big questions of what it means to be people present in the world who are living within a framework of choice, within a framework of obligation, and within a framework of using that choice and that freedom to hopefully do good things for the world, for ourselves, for our community, for our families, and for the future. So Shabbat Shalom. I guess I'll leave this open because we're gonna. So let's open this Torah. I don't know what happens in this Torah. This is just a big one. Will you lift it and I'll pull this off? I'm not going to roll it because I don't want to do it. Got it? Oh, it's heavy. Yeah, let's just open it and, part of what we do when we read from the Torah, even if we're going to read from the book, is acknowledge how powerful it is to have a Torah scroll, right, that looks like the Torah, that has been in our tradition for so long. This is gorgeous. It's so big. I don't have to squint at all. Wow. Well, it looks like, I don't know, Exodus, spatially. All right, you want to lead us in the blessing and then we'll read?
Let's all bless the Torah together. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
As I'm reading, as I start to read, I'll just tell you what this is. This is a tikkun, which is a book that is made for learning Torah reading, and it has the text with vowels and musical notes, the trope on one side, and then the text as it appears in the Torah on the other side. So that's what we're reading from today. Amen. Re'ei natati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra asher anuchi mitzavcha hayom le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lelechet bidrachav ulishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita v'verachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata bo shama l'rishta ve'im yifne levavcha velo tishma v'nidachta v'hishtachavita le'elohim achirim ve'avadatem higadati lachem hayom ki avod to'avedun lo ta'arichun yamim et al ha'adama asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta ha'edoti bachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz ha'chaim v'chamavet natati lefanecha habracha v'ha'klala uvacharta b'chaim lema'an tichya ata v'zarecha le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa be'kolo uledav kabo ki hu chayecha ve'orech yamecha lashevet al ha'adama asher nishba Adonai la'avotecha le'avraham li'yitzchak u'Yaakov latei lachem. Let's bless.
Blessing after. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Torat emet, the Torah of truth, ties back to our Musar teaching. It all comes together, doesn't it?
All right, I'm going to put this halfway on, and then we will take a break from our Torah before we put it away and use its holiness to say the Misha Berach prayer, the prayer for healing for those we know and love who are in need of that extra love and healing. Hoffman, David Karner, David Goldenberg, Stuart Myers, Catherine Pluss, Jean Silver, Scott Englander, Stacy Hoffman, Corey Franklin, Brian John Miller, Phyllis Schulman, Becky Mitchell, James Tepper, Christina Clark, Raymond Bell, Alan Davidson, Sikita Vatuk, Donald Gross, Shanti Hassan, Deborah Olenikoff, Alex Busnovetsky, Ellie Greenberg, Lori Goldman, Larry Ambrose, Laura Culver, Sylvia Goodman, Jerry Luckton, Ernie Stone, Carol Weiner, Shirley Barton, Terry Barton Gregg, Kelsey Seaman, Jackie Seaman, Jared Siegel, Arnold Brodsky, Marcine Goldman, and Pamela Law. Are there other names for whom you are saying Kaddish?
Misha Berach.
Misha Berach, thank you. If you're at home, type them in on Facebook, say them out loud, hold them in your heart so we can hold them with you as we continue our prayer for healing. Baruch atah Adonai makor harefuah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the source of healing.
Misha Berach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We rise as we are able as we return our Torah to the Ark.
V'zot Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא והשב אותה
והשב אותה Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And so we take a moment to call into this space the memories and the names of all of those that we love, that we are thinking of today, those we have lost in the last week, Jack Zellinger. Those we've lost in the last month, Kathy Carr, Janet M. Jacob, Charles Alexander Murdoch, Howard Rosenberg, and David Scher. And those for whom this Shabbat marks the Yortzeit or the anniversary of their passing. Bruce Americus, Dulcie Amter, Mabel Berman, Eunice Cook, Clara R. Feldman, Noah Fine, Anna Friedland, Lillian Gass, Harold Hal Gluscoder, Emma Goldstein, Sandra J. Goralnik, Selma L. Gordon, Leonard M. Gordon, Manny Greenberg, Ann Isco Grimes, Harry Grousman, Bonnie Handler, Tammy Hasselhorst, Burton Hoffman, Marcella Kahn, Walter Katz, Dan Kasman, Mason Kennepel, Florence S. Crone, Francine Lerman, David Levin, Julia Levy, Selma Lewis, Leona Lutz, Nancy R. Newstetter, Lena Tsena W. Optican, Belle Perlmutter, Abraham Plotka, Dr. Julius Pomerantz, Frank A. Quartaro, Marcia Richter, Franny Rosenthal, Leah Sack, Ethel Schiffer, Dr. Arthur Scholdberg, Julius F. Seaman, Lena Brodsky-Seff, Florence Shiroff, Edith Smirnoff, Rita Sobel, Belford Stryker, Sam Tatarsky, Abraham Weiland, Doris E. Wilmore, and Melvin Wolf. We add 10 more names from the city of Kolin for whom this Finer Chapel is dedicated. Karel Goldreich, Berta Goldreichova, Evgen Goldschmeid, Karolina Goldschmeidova, Ludwig Goliger, Hanna Goligrova, Ermina Goligrova, Dr. Victor Grossman, Karel Grunhut, and Karolina Grunhutova. Are there others for whom you are saying Kaddish? If you're at home and you have names to say them out loud so that you can hear them. Type them in on Facebook, hold them in your hearts. And if you are in a period of mourning, if this is 30 days for you, if you're in the first 30 days of the loss of a loved one, please rise. And if you're in the first year of mourning, please rise as you are able. And if you are observing a Yortzeit this Shabbat, please rise as you are able. And we all rise now together and join together in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yikarash shemei Rabba, be'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyamechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabba mevorach leolam uleamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say Amen.
and let us say, and let us say, Amen. And let us say, and let us say, Amen. And let us say, and let us say, Amen. And let us say, and let us say, Amen.
Announcements. Rosh Hashanah is on Monday. See you then. No, I'm just kidding. Really, here's the important things to know for those of you that are watching from home or you're in here. You can say if you guys want. Go ahead. Monday, virtual only. We're here leading from the sanctuary, bringing services, Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah to you in your homes. Facebook, website, if you have any questions about how to do that, just let us know. Tuesday, we have 2 options for being in service, for being in person in the tents. You have to be over 12, you have to be vaccinated, you have to be wearing a mask, and you have to have registered. If those are things that you need help doing, please, please, please call us. If you call today or tomorrow, you'll leave a message and we'll get back to you Monday morning. If you call Monday, we're staffing the phones, even though it's Labor Day. This is a labor of love, like how I did that. And we will help you to register. If anybody asks you how to do what they need to do to get here for Rosh Hashanah, please just let them know. We'll tackle Yom Kippur when it comes. Okay? Otherwise, we're really looking forward to celebrating this new year with you. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Well, there's more to Rosh Hashanah than the first day. Is that what you're saying? Yes, that's
Second
true.
day.
It turns out, it goes on. On Wednesday morning, we are having in-person outside services. Same rules apply for day 2 of Rosh Hashanah at 10:30. You have to register, mask, vax. And here's the thing that happened with day 2, is that because we're just in a new database and it got confusing and we couldn't, who knows, call Monday. If you're not on there and it doesn't, and you can't find it, I think you can still register on. Oh, great. If you're already registered, you're already registered. You don't have to re-register.
Call. It is confusing.
First thing let you register for Rosh Hashanah morning, first day, and Yom Kippur.
You know what, you guys?
And then when I called, somebody else called me back, but then I got emails saying that,
Good.
sort of saying
Okay.
that maybe I was registered.
Great. Call on Monday.
sorry.
We'll be here. We'll answer the phone. So sorry if anybody's had trouble. Just call. Okay?
You can imagine we've had to change this plan multiple times, and so.
Let's sing.
So this is a very old and familiar melody, but kind of modernized, and we will be closing our services both on Erev Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah morning with this wonderful piece. Ein Kel, let's take the capo off, so it's in the right
Key change. Dramatic.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu. Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Mikemalkeinu. Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu. Who's like our God? Who's like our God? Who's like our God? You are our God.
Yehi ratzon milfanecha, may it be your will, God, that we all remember that we have a choice all the time. How we enter the world, how we interact with the world, what it looks like, what it feels like. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control what we do with it. And so my blessing is for you, for this Shabbat, for this year, is that we use our choice for good, for peace, for making the world a better place. And so we ask your blessing, God, tatzidenu l'shalom, help our steps be steps of peace, tadrichenu l'shalom, help our paths be paths of peace. And we say together, Amen.
You are our God. You are our God. You are our God. You are our God.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And Shana Tova. Happy New Year, everyone.